Good morning, everyone. Today is Friday, March 23rd. Welcome to your daily astrological forecast. We're going to be taking a look at cycle of the moon as usual today. It is the day after the Mercury retrograde, so she's going to start going, or he's going to start going backwards here and kind of beginning its descent through Aries. During its descent through Aries, as I said yesterday, we're gonna be basically going through a filler arc. Time is gonna kind of like stop. Things are gonna feel a little wonky. It feels like no progression will be happening at all in the things that matter. But under the surface, there's a lot of updating that's going on. There's a lot of stuff that is happening. There's a lot of things you're gonna be involved in. Yet at the same time, it feels like nothing is progressing. And the reason is because this is a moment in time in which the universe has slowed down the clock so that we can get our shit straight before we progress forward. If we specifically talk about the position of where Mercury began retrograding, we could definitely talk about the fact that it was on Venus. So this is going to be a very big, important time period for us to really figure out what's important to us, what we feel good about, even a relationship with other people. There's definitely going to be a lot going on here that we need to improve on or fix or take a moment to address that we've definitely been neglecting. A lot of important things to our own self, because this is Aries, so definitely the things that we enjoy, that we like, that brings us happiness, as well as a relationship with other people, and making sure that we're authentic, that we are who we truly are, and we're not putting up a facade. Especially having Uranus here, it's really that importance to show your individuality, your inner genius, your inner uniqueness, and stop trying to hide it because you want to conform to other people. This is not that time period. Aries is straight up mad right now, and as if you heard yesterday's cast for the Mercury retrograde, there was a lot of Aries being channeled. Like, it was surreal. So definitely keep that in mind. That's the season that we're in right now, and that's the energy that we're going to keep rolling with. Now, before we start talking about some of the major aspects, I do want to say that this inconjunct between Ceres and Mars is definitely growing stronger. So there's definitely a big need to really focus in and home in a lot of the actions that you're taking. Because your actions are, and your successes, your achievements are going to be what helps nurture your life forward. Now, as I said, we do want to talk about the moon, and the moon is finishing up Gemini here. If you've listened to the last moon in Gemini, we talk about high and lows. The high vibration of Gemini is being go happy, lucky, finding their truth, finding their own kind of like self-purpose, being able to stay on, not necessarily stay on task per se, because Gemini are known to be sporadic, but being able to really find what it is that they're looking for, usually through the connections of others, right? A low vibration Gemini is more a little bit more divided, a bit very easily distracted, cannot stay on task at all, has no really desire for what they want to do at all. They just kind of like aimlessly go about, and they kind of just really neglect their self, as well as their environment and their close niche of people. And you definitely don't want to fall to those low vibrations. You want to stay up high, especially as we're, beginning this Mercury transit while the moon has been in Gemini, which again, Mercury rules Gemini. So it's very indicative of how this retrograde phase is beginning with the moon in Gemini. It's almost as it's saying, hey, let's do this. It's a very interesting thing that's going on. Now, for our first aspect of the day, we're going to be talking about moon T-squaring Chiron with Vesta. So the moon's going to be opposing Vesta. This is definitely a big, how do you feel about the emotional experiences that you've been having so far? How do you feel about the wisdom and the research that you've gained in the last several weeks? How do you feel about the type of life that you're experiencing right now? There's a big kind of taking a look at the world around you at the moment, and the reason is that it's T-squaring Chiron, which means that You're becoming emotionally aware of your experiences, and both of these factors are really trying to become indicators for how to heal Chiron, right? Both of them are squaring Chiron. It's as if both of them want to apply a treatment to Chiron, but they're not exactly sure which one will be more effective. And because of that, the two of them are having a struggle back and forth of figuring out which application to give Chiron so that Chiron can be healed. So kind of like imagine one of those like really anime trope scenarios where you have like a little boy caught in between two adult women and they're both trying to like give him a hug, but they're constantly fighting back and forth. That's kind of what's happening, not necessarily to the same degree, but like yeah, definitely both of them trying to be helpful, but sometimes when too much help is offered at the same time, chaos can ensue. Especially having all of this Aryan energy, there's already naturally a lot of chaos to begin with. So, you know, really think, and I don't say just think mentally, but think emotionally about the type of experiences that you have thus far, both on a personal scale as well as your experiences as part of a whole, as part of a worldly experience. Because that's going to be leading you to finding some answers of how to begin addressing this Chiron. Aside from that, like I said, this moon is very, very important because we're having another yod. Like we just had a yod the other day for Mars. And now we're having a yod for the moon. And these are like really close degrees too. We're talking about 22, 22, 21, only minutes apart from each other. Because even though these are, you know, within the 22nd degree, we have, they're kind of a little bit late. But, you know, there's definitely within that like 1 degree apart of each other. And this is really, really important because whenever we have such really tight degrees like this, it's almost as if the universe is telling us, hey, go pay attention to this, right? And that's why where the phrase the finger of God comes in, because it's like God is pointing his finger at a particular sign. Now I use the word God loosely here, of course. You guys know my stance on all of that. But definitely divine fingers being pointed at the moon, and there's a really big importance that needs to be paid attention to the moon in Gemini. And speaking of the moon in Gemini, as we had our retrograde yesterday, right? I want to ask you guys, how was your day yesterday? How was the world around you yesterday, right? For my own part, when we experience Mercury retrograde, for me, it's the biggest indication that astrology is real, because so many surreal things happen during the day of Mercury retrograde that it's almost impossible to not really believe in it, right? For my own part, we had upload issues. We had technological issues happening left and right. As far as other people in my family, they were running into pretty much everything that could be constituted as a Mercury retrograde. People almost crashing into each other, having technology failures, waiting at the store for an extended period of time, trying to get their things going through a cash registry, because of course technology decides to not work all of them at the same time. And then having to wait at the clinic again for a long period of time that usually you would have been quick in and out. So again, for her, that was like literally the definition of Mercury retrograde. And I was just like, wow, that's insane. So I mean, there was a couple more incidents, but again, those are really the big notable ones. And I'm just like, yeah, you guys can't, like, Mercury retrograde is literally like the biggest like slap in the face that it's so hard to like not notice it when it happens. So it's always kind of interesting. But again, having that moon again being pointed at like literally the day after the Mercury retrograde is like a straight up like, yo, pay attention to this, right? Pay attention to your emotions, pay attention to your intuition, pay attention to your downloads, because you're going to be finding your own personal truth, right? It's in Gemini right now. So through your communications, through your connections with those close to you, right? We're not talking about things like what's happening in the Middle East or what's happening in Japan. No, we're talking about literally close around you, neighborhood, vacancies, whatever happens around you is going to really home you in and key you in on some of the greater events that are happening, or on the larger designs of what's going on. It is in conjunct both this Jupiter retrograde as well as Pluto energy. So of course we got a lot of really big energies when it comes to transforming our faiths, beliefs, our sometimes even behaviors, such as things like addictions and dependencies and stuff, especially because we're talking about Scorpio. It is kind of the darker side of life. Definitely there's a lot of transformations when it comes to mental energy, or not necessarily mental, because that's really more about Mercury is more of like the mental aspect of things, but more on the, how do I say this, it's kind of like, it's a really difficult concept to like describe, but it's that belief, it's that faith, it's that confidence, it's that optimism, right? All of those type of mental, emotional, not sure how to categorize type of aspects of one's life are really going through massive transformations right now, as the sextile with Pluto has been happening for quite some time now, and it's not really going to go away anytime soon, especially anytime we get an aspect like this that's really big and major towards the moon. This is some serious paying attention to all of this stuff, right? Pay attention how you are reacting to the situations around you. Pay attention to what you're beginning to intuitively understand that you otherwise would have just overlooked as something plain dumb and stupid. There's a lot of energy here that is being very directive for you to kind of open up to and essentially be woke to the world around you, right? So aside from that, again, we have also our TriColor going on today. Like I'm telling you, we got a number of really big aspects going on today. So we got a TriColor that's a moon squaring Chiron, Chiron being trining Jupiter, and of course our moon in conjunct with Jupiter, which if we overlap it like this, again, you see that the moon is the really big focal point here. And it's kind of really interesting to see both a yaw towards the moon and the moon being the focal point of all of this. As I said, the way that I would read a TriColor like this is our emotions and our pains are something that we're having a really hard time kind of like really getting fixed, getting addressed, right? We have an emotional stance on the sufferings that we have, and we need to eventually heal it. Now, keep in mind that this this moon is going to continue transiting through here, and eventually it is going to end up squaring the sun as we get later into the night and into the past noon or past midnight degree hours. So we're definitely going to be having a bit of a square happening to the sun as well. But, the square here to Chiron is really that like emotional stance against our own suffering. Like, are we doing what we can to really become aware of it? Are we doing what we can to really be open to it? Are we really doing what we can to be able to find truth and healing for it, right? The only way we're going to be able to do this is by working together with our Jupiter here, which is why this inconjunct and this yacht is so really important here, because it's a huge, tag team championship between the moon and Jupiter really coming together. And it's going to be Pluto that's going to be supporting this so that we can change our stance on this Chiron and we can actually truly begin the healing process. So really interesting how the universe right now is aligned to kind of like help you find your way, help you find your truth, help you find your way of healing, right? Because not everyone needs the amount of healing, right? Not everyone needs the same procedure to be able to be healed. And in order to find that healing, you need to be able to find your truth. You need to be more aware of it. You need to be more open to it. And that's really kind of what's going on with both of the aspects going on here, overlapping each other. This is a very interesting time. This is a very, very interesting time. And if you thought that Jupiter was out of the mix, or excuse me, if you thought that Pluto was still out of the mix and that's the only job it's doing, take a look at the other aspects that's going on here as well. We have a wedge going on between a sextile that's going on from the moon to Venus, and by de facto to Mercury. But the important aspect here is the moon sextiling Venus, because Venus is squaring Pluto and Pluto's in conjunct with the moon. Again, changes that need to be learned so that we can address the problems that we have, the Venusian problems that we have. This is a massive address your Venusian problems. Venus right now is perfectly about 1 degree away, but perfectly squaring Pluto by what, maybe add 1, carry the 1, something like 11 minutes away. That's like nothing at all. So we're having a lot of really big issues here with our Venus and Pluto. Pluto is telling us we need to change shit. We need to change shit. Like, we can't just let things continue going the way they are. And again, going through the moon, getting those downloads, being able to actively change the issues that we're having with Venus is a really good thing. And again, as I've said before, Venusian problems, being an Aries, this is self-identity, this is self-exposure, this is how we're presenting ourselves to the world, because we're conjunct Mercury here. This is how, are we pleased with our own skin? Are we pleased with the way that people see us and understand us? Are we pleased with people knowing who we really are? Are we pleased with the environment that we're in right now? There's a lot of things that we essentially really need to please ourselves in. That's why we have these 3 major aspects all working together, all working with the moon. If you take a look at it, they're all working with the moon. The moon is a really big player today, and not only because it's a lunar transit that we're always taking a look at, but look at all these aspects that are coming out of the moon. There's a lot of energy that is just surging out of the moon, and this is really important because it means that the moon is going to be the big focal point of today. Downloads, intuition, emotional understanding, finding that personal truth. This is the big message of today, and there's just so much energy coming in and out of this moon that is cycling through the rest of the chart. So keep that in mind moving forward today. Continue to take a look at your surroundings, at your contacts, at the people you're interacting today. Even if you're not interacting with people, take a good look at the environment around you. Please look both ways before crossing the street. With this Mercury retrograde, things can go off the hinges really freaking quickly, and you want to make sure that you are prepared for the situations. Do not expect perfection. Virgos out there, specifically, big message for you. Do not expect things to go exactly as you want them to. Instead, just take that moment of like, okay, I understand things aren't necessarily going to go smoothly today. How can I just go with the flow? How can I just gain the information that I need without having to go through a traumatic situation? Because Mercury retrograde can literally mess things up, and a lot of these aspects today are telling you to open your eyes because you got shit that you need to realize. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this message. I will be back tomorrow with the Saturday cast. So if you missed yesterday's episode, I'd recommend definitely checking that out, as it is a precursor for the Mercury retrograde. Please watch those 2 episodes if you really haven't. I highly recommend it. They're definitely going to be helping you for the next 20-ish days until the next new moon. They're going to be very, very indicative of the energy that we're going to be essentially swimming through. So yeah. Definitely please check those out if you haven't. And as usual, guys, please stay safe. Please really stay safe. Stay positive. And I'll be catching you guys on the next cast. Peace.